This video covers review 7, problems 12 through the end. So problem 12 asks us to write an equation that represents the line that passes through the point 25 and is parallel to the graph y equals 3/2 x minus 7. So first they ask us to write it in point slope. So remember, point slope is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Parallel means the same slope. So my slope m is still going to be 3/2. And then my point is 2, 5. So minus 2 and minus 5. Then they ask us to put it into slope-intercept form. So that's where we solve for y. In order to solve for y, I need to distribute 3/2 times x, 3/2 times -2. And then add or subtract the 5. So in this case, I'm going to add the 5 to get away from y. So y equals 3/2 x plus 2 is my answer in the slope-intercept form. Problem 13 asks us to determine if the equations are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. And it does remind us to solve both of these for y. So first, I'm going to solve the one on the left for y. In order to get y by itself, I need to divide both sides, or every piece, by 5. So I have 3/5 x and 4/5 that follows. And then on this side, to get y by itself, I need to move 5. And then, so that was the adding or subtracting step. And then I need to divide everything by 3. So I have -5/3 x minus 2. So when I look at my slopes, I have 3/5 and -5/3. These are going to be perpendicular because they are complete flopposites of each other. 3/5 turns into 5/3, positive turns into negative. So these are perpendicular. The next one, same thing. The only piece that's attached to y is that 2, so I divide everything by 2. And I have -2x minus 7/2. Very similar problems here. No parentheses, no combining, no moving y's to the same side. 4x is on the other side, so I move that. And then divide everything by 2. So when I look at my slopes, I have -2 and -2. These are the exact same, so these will be parallel slopes. 15 wants the equation, slope, and y-intercept of a line with these 2 points. So I'm going to write them in a table and put them into stat edit. And I have a calculator here to show you all those steps. So in my calculator, I'm going to click the stat edit options. I'm trying to show you a little more light. There we go. So in L1, I have 3 and -2. In L2, I have -12. Oh no. And 13. So that's what I have. I have plugged it in just like my page. Then I click Stat, scroll over to Calc, scroll down to option 4 for LNREG. I'm going to click Enter. And I get -5 and 3. So I'm going to go back to my paper. My slope is -5, my y-intercept is 3, and my equation is -5x plus 3. And all of this comes from stat edit in the calculator. Problem 16, they give us an equation and ask us to fill in the table, or maybe on the test they're going to ask us which table is correct. So in order to find a table, you could plug all of these things in. You could plug in -6 for x and solve for y. What I'm going to do instead is solve for y and put this in y equals in the calculator. So for y equals, I'm going to put 4x minus 9. So this time, in the calculator, I'm going to go to y equals up in the top left. This one's a little rubbed off, but that used to say y equals. In y equals, I'm going to type 4x, remember this one next to alpha is my x button, minus 9. So I'm putting my equation in just like I see it, y equals 4x minus 9. And then I'm going to go to the table. The table is in blue writing, so to get to blue, I hit the blue button and then hit the number, and I'm going to fill these in from there. So when I go to x of -6, y is -33. When x is -5, y is -29. When x is 1, y is -5. X of 4 is 7. X of 7 is 19. Problem 17, number of sweaters y knitted. The number of sweaters knitted, y, varies directly as time x. If grandma makes 3 sweaters in 4 weeks, write an equation that represents this situation. So first, remember, varies directly gives us the point 0, 0. Then we know y is sweaters and x is time. So we're told 4 weeks makes 3 sweaters. So we also have the point 4, 3. I'm going to put this into stat edit using the same steps we did on problem 15, and I get 3/4 x. They just wanted the equation, so I don't have to do anything else with it. 18, they want the equation of a line that goes through the point 8, -2, and is perpendicular to this line. So in order to be perpendicular, I need the flopposite slope. In order to find the slope, I need y by itself. So I'm going to move 4x to the other side. So y equals -4x plus 14. So my flopposite slope, m is -4. The opposite would be a positive, and then flip it would be 1/4. So to plug into point slope, I'm going to plug in a positive 1/4 for my x. I'm sorry, for my m. And then my x1, y1 is 8 and -2. Remember that you changed the signs. Part B wants this in slope intercept, so I'm going to simplify. I'm solving for y. So I distribute 1/4 times x, 1/4 times 8. I don't have like terms to combine. I only have one y, so I can't move it, but I do have something outside of the box with y. So y is 1/4 x minus 4 in slope intercept form. 19 has 2 ways to do it. 19, we have the value of y is directly proportional or varies directly to the value of x. If y is 32 when x is 160, what is y when x is 48? So 2 different ways we can do it. The first way is to set up a proportion. The second way is in stat edit. So the first way, if I set up a proportion, it doesn't really matter which one's on top. I just need to make sure I label. So the first piece of information I'm given is y is 32 when x is 160. And we want to know when x is 48, what is the value of y? So when I solve, I cross multiply. 160y equals 32 times 48, which is 1536. And then I divide both sides by 160, and y equals 9.6. My other option, I know that directly proportional has the 0.00, and then I also have the 0.16032, so that's this point right here. I plug into stat edit and get y equals 0.2x. Then I am given that x value of 48, so I plug in 48 for x and solve to get 9.6. Both of these give you the same answers, so really you need to decide which way makes more sense to you. If you see 3 pieces of information, are you going to remember to ignore the 48 for the first part and plug into stat edit with an imaginary point? Or are you going to remember to set up a proportion to solve for the 4th piece of missing information? Problem 20, they want an equation to represent the table below and determine if it is direct variation. So for this, I'm going to go back to stat edit. I'm going to plug my table in exactly like I see it. So negative 6, negative 5, 1, 4, and 7. And then, negative 39. Negative 34, negative 14, 10, and 24. So I've plugged this table in exactly like I see it. Then I'm going to scoot back out and click Stat, scroll to Calc, Option 4, enter. This is really ugly, so I'm just going to round. So y equals 4.8x minus 11.6. And then they ask if this is an example of direct variation. Remember, direct variation includes the 0.00, or your b value has to be 0. So this is not, because the b value equals negative 11.6. Or you could say because the y-intercept is at 0, negative 11.6. You could also plug this equation into y equals and go look at the table and say that the table does not contain the 0.00. 21, y varies directly as x, y is 108 when x is 18. What is the equation that represents the situation? So varies directly gives us the 0.00, and then using this information, I have the 0.18108. I'm going to put these in stat edit and get y equals 6x. Note that this does not have a plus anything at the end because we have direct variation. 22 is asking for a vertical line that goes through the point -27. A vertical line is a vux, so that would be vertical. A vux has a slope that is undefined, and the x in the equation, or the x in vux, tells you the equation. It's x equals the x from your point. Problem 23, same point. This time it's a horizontal line. Horizontal is a hoi. The O in hoi tells us the slope is 0. The y in hoi tells us our equation, which is y equals y from your y point. 24, we have a music recording studio that charges $120 per session plus $15 for cleaning after. If the budget is at most $1,000, they want domain and range. So the first thing I'm going to do is write a function to express this piece right here. It is $120 per session plus $15 for cleaning. So y is going to equal my total money, where x is the total sessions. Then I know I have a max y of $1,000. I can't spend, or she can't spend, over $1,000. So what I'm going to do is put this into y equals and look at where my y value equals or is greater than $1,000, because then I know that's the most amount of money I can spend. So in y equals, I'm going to type 120x, remember it's the one right by alpha, plus 15. I'm going to go second table, and I'm going to scoot in so you can see the table I'm looking at a little better. I am looking for a max money of $1,000. At 9 sessions, I have spent more money than I have. So this is the most sessions I can get in for $1,000, which would be 8 sessions. So if my max y is 8, my max X, I'm sorry, my max Y is $1,000. Therefore, my max X is going to be 8. So they first asked me for the domain. Domain is your X's, which is your sessions. Sessions, I can do up to 8 sessions. Now, I can do anything in between. Or I'm sorry, I can have 0 sessions, but I cannot have in between sessions. You can't have half of a session. So this is discrete, which is what they tell you up here, which means you don't do the inequality. You instead do the squigglies. The range is your Y's, and your Y is total money. So what I do to find this is I go back to the table, and I look where X is 0, Y is 15. Where X is 1, Y is 135. 2 is 255. 3 is 375. 4 is 495. 5 is 615. 6 is 735. 7 is 855. And 8 is 975. And remember, this was our last money number. So I'm going back to the table. I said I could do anything from 0 sessions to 8 sessions on the X's. So when I'm looking at this table, I am writing all of these Y values because all of these are potential totals that I could have for this situation. Then for the last 2 problems, they asked me to use this grid. The linear function h is shown. Record my answer, fill in the bubbles. So the value of the y-intercept. The y-intercept, here's my 0, 0. So this is my y-axis going up and down. This crosses the y-axis right here. If I notice, every other line is a number. So this is in between -2 and -4, which is the number -3. So I put the negative and the 3. Keep in mind, it does not matter if you put the 3 here, or if you put it over here, or if you put it over here. Just do not fill these in with zeros. Don't do that because that's -3,000. It is best if you only use the boxes that you need and do not bubble anything extra. 26 is asking for the slope. So if I use this and maybe my x-intercept, I could identify the slope here. So from point to point, I go up 1, 2, 3, and then I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope is 3/5. They ask me to write this as a decimal. So in my calculator, I do 3 divided by 5, enter. And it tells me that's the decimal 0.6. So I put the decimal and the 6. So I put decimal 6. Again, this does not matter where you put it as long as the decimal and the 6 are right next to each other. And then you do not fill anything else in with any other thing.